Hello, welcome back to my channel. Steve Gonsalves did an interview with local media yesterday. It was up on their website for about an hour and then it's just gone. Don't know why, but I'm wondering if he revealed too much in one of his statements, one of his answers. I'm going to play the whole interview. When it gets up to that point, which isn't very long into the interview, I'll point it out on the video so you can pay attention. Listen to what he says about Bryan and his phone. Okay? I think that either this information was revealed to him or more likely Olivia, his daughter, figured this out. Maybe he wasn't supposed to say it, but it's up on the interview. I'm going to play it for you now. Let me know what you think. Here we go.
Well, you're a dad of who was a wonderful and beautiful woman. Can you tell me about Kaylee and what you miss most about her?
I miss what she meant to the family. She had a role in the family. You have five children, and you think that every child is unique and different, but they bring something to the family. And she knew where she fit in. She was the one who was the planner, the organizer, and always wanted to push the envelope a little bit. If we wanted to go on a week vacation, she wanted to make it 10 days, and if it was going to be to one country or two countries, she wanted to make it 5 or 6. So that's what we'll miss. Holidays, she was the one who wanted to do the gingerbread houses and push it. She knew me. I would just be like, I would use any excuse not to want to go and do that and just relax watching football and just kick back. But she knew to make memories, you got to do those type of things. So we'll miss that gift that she brought to us every single day. And she was a little ornery too, so we'll miss that as well. My family, we don't not everyone's just perfect. So good jokes and a little tease here and there, that's totally fine with us.
What did she love and what did she maybe not love?
You know what? She was the first one that stepped out and liked the country music, and we'd kind of razz her and we'd tease her a little bit because nobody else did, But that's how she was. She step out on that ledge all by herself. So she loved doing that and going to concerts and hanging with her friends. She'd go buy some goofy little barbecuer and a tent and an air mattress and think that she was gonna, spend a weekend out on the Gorge concert or some concert along those lines. So that's the main thing that we remember that, and no one else is really into country. They kind of got into country after her because she kind of forced us all to start listening to it. But she was like that Taylor Swift girl that loved that stuff and was playing it in her room as she was cleaning it all day long.
When you think about her and Maddie's friendship, I mean, two best friends who went off to school together, the fact that, and you said this in the vigil, that they were killed in the bed together. When you think about their friendship and what Maddie meant to you, will you tell me a little bit about that too?
I just read a letter where Maddie wrote to Kaylee talking about their friendship, and it was powerful. And they were beyond sisters, because sisters are, you kind of forced to get along. These two didn't, they weren't forced, but they were close enough to where, if they got mad and one was deciding to go somewhere else and the other didn't, they always patched up and they always got together and planned these crazy trips that they did together. They were just like yin and yang, and it was nice because Kaylee would come over to the house or over to their house, and then Maddie would come to our house, and then they were opposites. Like her house was empty and nice and quiet and peaceful. She could do her homework, but Maddie wanted to come over here and play with her sisters. And I didn't feel like a big sister in our house, and she was always good with the kids. So it really worked out to where it was just a natural fit.
Thinking about the fact that it's been 2 months without them, without your daughter, without Maddie, without these young Xana and Ethan, do you feel like you finally have some semblance of answers? And obviously the justice process hasn't happened, so innocent until proven guilty. But what are you feeling now that we know who the suspect is?
Feel relief. It was nearly 7 weeks of absolutely no clear guidance that we were on the right track. We had evidence. We knew there was evidence, but all that can mean nothing until you have a face and a person, a personality to put it towards. So when we found that out, luckily it was in the middle of the night, 10:30. We were able to run around the house, wake everyone up, and say, "Hey, you know what? We got this guy. We got somebody." But you tell yourself to be careful because you never know for sure. It's a defendant, and it's not done. There's still a lot more work to do. So that's where we're at now. We're ready for the next chapter to be okay. We're going to go in and, we got the affidavit and we've seen that it wasn't a page, it wasn't two, it wasn't three, four, five. It was long. I believe it's like 14 pages, maybe longer. And, you look at that and you're like, all right, it was worth the wait. And, they had a lot of evidence to show for that. So, we're on the right track and there's still a long ways to go, but it feels good. It feels good to be where we are right now.
What was it like seeing him in court yesterday? What kind of sense did you get from his body language and the way that he acted?
I got a sense that he was shocked that he had messed up so bad. He had read that, and I think he knew how damaging it was, and he wasn't going to be able to explain a lot of that stuff very easily. He could, I'm sure he thinks he can, but I seen a man who looked defeated, and his body language looked like somebody in shock and dismay. So I think he knows how much he has to go against, and he's the reality of it setting in.
Do you think he didn't expect to find himself in this position?
Yeah, I totally believe he's somebody who's arrogant enough to think I can commit a crime and not think about the consequences because the consequences go to people who don't get caught, who aren't as intelligent as smart as me. And I've looked into his background. I've heard some of his best friends talk about how, he was very brash and he had a sense of, superiority. So it's easy to think that when it's all in your head, you sound like, you're perfect. But then when the reality comes and you do something like this and you realize it only takes one mistake, we got a sheath right next to a body. Yeah, have fun with that. How are you going to explain that? It's got your DNA on it. So I think the reality of that and a lot of digital forensics, cell phone records the FBI's put together is extremely impressive. So I think they're gonna. I think he's starting to realize that he's never going to see freedom ever again.
What would you say to him? And I heard you, I think it was on the News Nation interview yesterday with Christy, say, we will forgive him. I mean, that's a surprising thing, I think, for a lot of parents to hear. I mean, tell me a little bit about that forgiveness.
I think as a family, you have a big family, you got to learn to forgive. And, kids make mistakes and you learn as a parent, that's part of the process. But we've all known in our family, there's nothing more um, hard to get over. It is when you decide to take somebody's life, you've taken their opportunity to ask for forgiveness from other people. And, that's the end. I said it, you play God that day when you do that. And when you go and do something like that, the responsibility is you're going to have to take that person's place if you've done it in a fashion that is unfair and unjust. And I think that's what the court will be determining, was this unfair and unjust. And once that's determined, then that's what the law is there for. So yeah, but we will forgive. We're not going to walk around with darkness in our heart for the rest of our lives and have his name written there like a tattoo on our consciousness. So yeah, you have to forget. At least I feel you have to forgive. Otherwise, it's just a cancer inside you, and I'm not willing to live with that inside me.
I know everybody's been asking you this question, but do you know of any connections between Kaylee and any of the victims and this individual?
Uh, to me, I mean, it's like 9, 10 miles. I mean, I'd be shocked if these guys didn't cross each other in grocery stores and just everyday life. So I'm not going to be that surprised that there's going to be some type of thing that comes up in, I've said it, whether it's grocery store or coffee or something. I mean, if he was over there for a year, I'm assuming that he followed them and he may have figured out what their patterns are. And then, he tries to bump into them or he tries to hang out in those spots. and coordinate, trying to cross in. But I don't know how important they really are at this point. I just know that uh, it happened, and we may figure it out as the case develops.
And I just look at that from, I think anybody in America is like, that's the next question, right? Is why them? Like, why would he target these people who he had no ties to? And it just feels like such rage to do that to somebody, to four people.
Yeah, and that kind of just tells you who he was, because he wasn't tied to everyone in that room. Ethan wasn't supposed to even be there. And from what Ethan went through, that this guy just wasn't a man of character. He was just poorly built. And there isn't going to be some kind of connection that I would think that would explain this.
You don't think there's going to be some kind of connection that will explain this?
No, what kind would? I mean, like,
Yeah.
my girl's bullying him, or what kind of behavior could explain somebody being this brutal to another human being? I mean, he was probably obsessed with just their overall looks and their social media accounts and the fact that they were close, you know?
Makes you sick. It's sickening, I'm sure, to see the information that came out in the affidavit about how he had been by the house multiple times prior to the murders as well. I don't know if you guys knew that early on.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so you know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out into your front yard, you're not going to get too far. So
I don't think I saw that part. Wow. Um, Again, similar to the connection, but motive. I mean, any indication as to, like you said, there's nothing that can explain this, and you can't make sense out of something that doesn't make sense. But any motive that you guys have gleaned from all of this?
I'd just be guessing, but he taught a class that studied killers and how they did these things. I think he thought in his little fantasy world that he was going to teach a class where he actually did it and no one had a clue. And then that gave him a sense of superiority. Like, you're getting your grades, graded by somebody who actually has lived this lifestyle. So, but that would just be my guess, though.
When things like this happen and suspects are found, I think so often the media attention turns to the suspect, and we don't want to glorify and we don't want to keep plastering his picture. I mean, I don't know how much of the news you've been watching, but what can we do to better serve the victims and their families to ensure that we're continuing to highlight them? And what message do you have for people that are going to watch this story?
My message is that, I'm here for my daughter and Maddie, but there's two other people that are just as important, and their kids went through just as much, and their losses are just as real. So I think, as a media, you can show those other people that they're just as important and they're in the spotlight as well. And, their parents have chosen to do it more private. And I totally respect that. I'm usually a very private person, but in this case, it was a situation where I felt like I was going to be required to come out and make sure that the story didn't die, and we built some momentum and we got everyone involved that we possibly could. But the media, yeah, don't glorify this guy. It's going to be hard, putting his face in his picture. We just don't want to create another breed of these guys. There's Netflix videos right now. We know what they are, that glorify these type of people, give them, Hollywood fame, and they concentrate on them and not the victims at all. And the story is all about them. So I hope this story here is all about these kids and how they did everything wrong. I mean, they did everything right, and somehow this turned out wrong. So we have to look at, like, what do we got to do in society to where we can identify people and make sure that we catch them before we lose such a powerful set of people, or even one person is unreplaceable. So I think society needs to kind of do an audit check on itself and figure out, what our priorities are. And is this going to go away on its own? I don't think so. I think we need to come together and figure out a way to treat people that have these conditions and identify them.
Steve, since the affidavit came out too, everybody's been talking about one of the girls' roommates You can't imagine what a young girl is going through when something like that happens. What is your take on the fact that the guy walked past her and she didn't call 911 for several hours and she'd heard some things? I mean, what's your take on all that?
I know one time in the past that somebody was pretending to break into my house, and Kaylee hid under her bed and called, 911, and was too scared to even talk. And then she called me at work, and I prepared her to jump out that window because I didn't know that it was a practical joke. So I think that's a natural thing for girls to freeze up and lock up and put themselves in a position of safety. And I don't hold that against them. It's I've already checked into the, could they have lived? Was it a slow bleed out or something? And it wasn't. So there's one bad guy here that I have to focus on. All those other things will slowly come out. I'm sure they catch other people's attention, but for me, I really have to focus on the individual who is responsible for this. And that is a big enough challenge and obstacle that we have to overcome than to worry about, two girls that, were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's like people are trying to cast blame and question why, and you just can't put yourself in their shoes. Sounds like maybe the girl was traumatized. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's I Hollywood makes it look like a girl will just do some karate move and chop it, and knock this, knife out of his hands. In reality, she saved her own life by just being quiet and hiding, and that's a survival instinct. And yeah, I don't want to turn it into. I mean, there's so many people who have had their lives dragged through some mud in this case, and the Jacks and everything. They're innocent, and I think media sometimes forgets to go clear those people up and reach out to them and say, hey, is there anything we can do to help you guys get your lives back on track? Because they've been through a lot, and I've always tried to make sure that we address that and let people know that these people are completely innocent, and they've gotten death threats, and people have treated them bad, and you know there's somebody out there that can fix that and make that right. So, offer them a job, offer them an internship, put them back on track. So, college can be an uplifting thing. That's what it should be for.
I guess are you fairly confident in the fact that law enforcement has the right guy and that they went through the proper steps?
Right. So, offer them a job, offer them an internship, put them back on track. So, college can be an uplifting thing. That's what it should be for.
I guess are you fairly confident in the fact that law enforcement has the right guy and that they went through the proper steps?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it took forever for me, but I think I mean, how many agents do we have? We have like 60 some agents. So if there was ever a team, a dream team to solve a crime and put it together correctly, we got them. So that's why I just sit back and just now it's just going to be a slow drag, and hopefully when we go to court it doesn't turn into a circus show of this guy and a prosecutor. All this stuff just goes cleanly and it's not turned into a drama.
Yeah, I'm sure it's looking back, hindsight. It's like it was so frustrating during the process of how they were keeping information so close to the vest and not releasing a lot. I mean, I know you guys were more in the know than the public and the media, but I'm sure even you were like begging for answers.
Yeah, and when you have answers and you can't share them, it's really hard too. It's hard on the other side. So I knew Jack D had DNA, and I was just so puzzled that they wouldn't come out and clear it. But I'm sure they had strong reason. But I just didn't know at the time, and it was hard for me.
Last question would be just like, how are you guys? I know you said relief. I'm sure you're exhausted. How are you feeling, and what's next?
What's next is as a family, we're gonna come together and figure out the schedule. You know, I'm gonna lean on Shannon for that because he has a lot more experience. It's not even comparable. So this is what happens when you get the right legal counsel. You can go through this process and you're not alone. You have somebody there that has experience, and then your team has actually got experience. And that's one thing I said at the beginning is we couldn't do this alone. We could. It's too big. You got 4 people. If another parent, heaven forbid, goes through this, don't try to do it on yourself. Go out there if you can. If you can find the right people, build a team up, and then you can have a bad day and somebody else can step in your place. And that's what this court will be. One day it'll be me, one day it'll be mom, one day it'll be my son, my daughters, not the younger ones. I probably won't let them, even though they'll ask. But I'll work with Shannon to make sure that none of us are exposed to anything that's too gruesome, and we'll go from there.
I'm so sorry for what you went through and are going through. Just know that the nation and the world are really supporting you guys. I know you know that, but I'm really appreciative of you being willing to share with the media. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, take care, you guys. We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, guys. So what did you think? I wanted to play the whole interview because it is important, and I'm glad I got a screen capture of it before it was removed. But what did you think about the part where he says they got him touching on their Wi-Fi, which means his phone either connected or tried to connect to their Wi-Fi at their home? You guys know you can't go outside very far from your home when you're on your Wi-Fi. So that means he had to have been like right there at the home. And they have that proof. I'm not sure if that was just Olivia, the daughter, who sleuthed that out, or if that's information that he got from the police or the FBI forensics. But he did say it. Bryan's phone was right there on their Wi-Fi. So that's going to be huge. There's no way he can explain that. Not to mention all the other stuff, the DNA and all that. But tell me what you think of that portion and the whole interview. I thought it was a very good interview. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching.